There's a quiet moment that happens in the middle of the day, one that most people never talk about. You're standing in your kitchen, not walking, not reaching, not doing anything in particular. Just standing. Your hand rests lightly on the edge of the counter. Not because you're tired, not because you need help. Just there, almost without thinking. And if someone asked you why, you probably wouldn't have an answer. But somewhere in that stillness, a small thought passes through. Why do I feel more stable when I touch something, even when I'm not moving? It's not a dramatic moment. There's no stumble, no fear, no sudden loss of control. Just a subtle shift in how your body feels and how it quietly responds. And what's interesting is, no one else sees it, no one points it out, but you notice. And once you notice it, you can't quite unnotice it. That gentle reach for something nearby, that almost invisible preference for contact, even when you don't truly need it. It's not weakness, it's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing, it's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear, it slowly asks for support. And often, it begins in moments exactly like this. Not during movement, but just before it. Not during effort, but during stillness. Because sometimes the first sign isn't that something is harder. It's that something becomes just slightly more intentional. If you've ever found yourself reaching for something without quite knowing why, consider liking and subscribing if this feels familiar. There's something gentle happening beneath the surface. Not a problem, not a warning, but a quiet shift. A language your body begins to speak, long before anything feels wrong. And once you start to recognize it, you begin to understand that these moments are not interruptions. They're communication, small signals that say, give me just a little more time. Let me settle before we move. Let's do this a bit more carefully. Not because you have to, but because your body is choosing safety over speed. And that choice is often invisible to everyone else, but deeply felt by you. It can begin with something as simple as standing up. You rise from a chair, just like you've done thousands of times before. Your hands may or may not press against the armrest. Your legs do what they've always done. But then, there's a pause. Just a brief one, barely a second, before your first step. It's not hesitation in the usual sense. You don't feel unsure. You don't feel unstable. You just wait. A tiny moment where your body seems to check in with itself, almost like it's asking, are we ready? Harold, a 79-year-old retired mechanic from Pennsylvania, noticed this one morning without really meaning to. He stood up from his kitchen chair, planning to head to the sink. But instead of stepping forward right away, he found himself standing still. Not stuck, not confused, just pausing. He didn't think much of it at first, until it happened again later that day, and then again the next morning. It wasn't discomfort. It wasn't fear. It was simply a new rhythm. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. And that difference was subtle, but consistent. His body wasn't slowing him down. It was giving itself a moment to organize, to align, to prepare. Because standing up isn't just about strength. It's about orientation. It's about allowing your balance to reset before you ask it to move. So that 1-second pause, it's not a problem. It's an adjustment moment, a quiet recalibration. And when you allow it, instead of rushing past it, something interesting happens. Your movement feels smoother, more grounded, more certain. You're not forcing your body to keep up with your habits. You're letting your habits evolve with your body. And that shift makes everything feel a little safer, a little more in sync. It's not weakness, it's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing, it's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear. It slowly asks for support. And sometimes, that support is simply time. Then there's that very first step, not the second, not the third, just the first one. The moment your foot leaves the ground and reaches forward. It used to be automatic, effortless. But now, there's something slightly different, not visible to others, but felt by you. A gentle testing of the ground, as if your foot is asking, is this surface steady? Not in a fearful way, more like a quiet confirmation. Evelyn, an 81-year-old grandmother from Oregon, noticed this while walking across her living room. She had no trouble walking, no dizziness, no falls. But she realized that her first step each time felt more deliberate. Her foot would reach out just a little more carefully. Not slower in a dramatic sense, just more aware. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. And that difference was not about limitation. It was about precision. Her body was no longer assuming. It was sensing, gathering information, making small adjustments before committing to movement. And that's not something to correct. It's something to respect. Because what's happening here is simple. Your body is prioritizing safety over speed. It's choosing certainty over momentum. And when you allow that first step to be just a little more intentional, the rest of your movement follows more naturally. There's less strain, less correction later, less need to fix anything mid-step. That one careful beginning sets the tone. An adjustment moment doesn't have to be big. It can be as small as letting your foot land fully before shifting your weight. As small as giving yourself one extra breath before continuing forward. And in that small space, your body feels supported, not rushed, not pushed, just guided. It's not weakness. It's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing. It's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear. It slowly asks for support. And sometimes, that support begins with a single step. Turning is another place where this quiet language appears. Not a full spin, not a dramatic pivot, just a simple turn, to face the sink, to respond to someone calling your name, to reach for something behind you. It used to be one smooth motion, effortless, continuous, but now, it might happen in smaller pieces. A slight shift of the feet, a gentle repositioning, a moment where the movement feels segmented, not broken, just more structured. Franklin, an 83-year-old former librarian from Vermont, first noticed this while tidying up his study. He turned to reach for a book behind him and realized that his body didn't rotate all at once. Instead, he adjusted his feet slightly, then his hips, then his shoulders, all within a second or two, but distinctly. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. There was no discomfort, no imbalance. Just a new pattern, one that allowed his body to stay centered throughout the turn. Instead of relying on momentum, it relied on positioning. And that's the key. Your body begins to favor control over fluidity, not because it has to, but because it chooses to. It's a smarter way of moving, a more stable way. And when you recognize that, you stop trying to turn like you used to. You start turning in a way that feels right now. An adjustment moment here might be as simple as not rushing the turn, allowing your feet to guide the movement, letting your body follow in sequence instead of all at once. And when you do that, something shifts. Your balance feels more secure. Your movement feels more intentional. And there's a quiet confidence in knowing that you're moving with your body, not against it. It's not weakness. It's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing. It's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear. It slowly asks for support. And sometimes, that support comes in how you turn. Then there are moments when you're not moving at all, just standing, waiting, Maybe at the sink, maybe in the hallway, maybe by the door, and without thinking, you lean slightly, not heavily, not noticeably, just enough to feel anchored. Your hand touches the wall, or the counter, or the back of a chair, not because you need to hold on, but because it feels better, more stable, more certain. Dorothy, a 78-year-old from South Carolina, found herself doing this while folding laundry. She stood beside the table, and her fingers rested lightly against its edge. She wasn't tired, she wasn't off balance, but that gentle contact made the moment feel easier. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. Standing had become something more than just being upright. It had become something her body wanted to support, and that small touch provided exactly that. It's not dependency, it's awareness. Your body recognizes that even in stillness, balance is active. It's constantly adjusting, constantly responding, and a single point of contact gives it just a bit more information, a bit more grounding. An adjustment moment here is beautifully simple. Allow the touch. Don't question it. Don't remove it just to prove something. Let your body have that extra connection. Because it's not about needing help. It's about creating stability in the most natural way. And when you do that, standing feels different. More relaxed, more supported, more at ease. It's not weakness. It's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing. It's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear. It slowly asks for support, and sometimes that support is just a fingertip away. There are also those moments when space changes, not wide open areas, but narrower ones. A hallway, a doorway, the space between a table and a chair. You approach it the same way you always have. But just before entering, something shifts. You slow down, not dramatically, not consciously, just slightly. Your steps become more measured. Your awareness becomes sharper. As if your body is saying, let's take this one carefully. Walter, an 80-year-old from New Mexico, noticed this while walking through his kitchen. There was a narrow path between the counter and the island. He had passed through it countless times. But recently, he found himself easing his pace just a bit. Not because it was difficult, but because it felt right. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. The space hadn't changed, but his approach to it had. His body was no longer moving on autopilot. It was responding to context, to environment, to subtle cues, and that's not a limitation. That's intelligence. Your body is learning, adapting, refining how it moves through the world. An adjustment moment here can be as simple as honoring that slowdown, not pushing through it, not trying to prove that you can move just as fast. Because speed isn't the goal, comfort is, safety is, ease is. And when you allow your pace to match your environment, everything feels smoother, more controlled, more natural. It's not weakness, it's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing. It's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear. It slowly asks for support. And sometimes, that support shows up in how you move through space. And then there's that small step down. Not a staircase, not a big drop. Just a single step. A curb, a small ledge, a slight change in height. You've done it countless times. But now, there's a moment before you step. A brief pause, a look. Your eyes check the distance. Your foot follows with a bit more care. Not fear, not hesitation, just attention. Ruth, an 84-year-old from Georgia, noticed this when stepping off her front porch. It was a familiar step, one she had taken every day for years. But recently, she found herself looking down before stepping. Not because she doubted herself, but because her body seemed to want confirmation. I didn't feel unsteady. I just moved differently. That glance, that pause, that slightly more careful step. They weren't signs of decline. They were signs of awareness. Your body recognizing that changes in height require a moment of recalibration, a chance to prepare, to align, to land with certainty. An adjustment moment here might be giving yourself that extra second, letting your eyes guide your movement, allowing your foot to fully meet the ground before shifting your weight. And when you do that, the step feels solid, secure, predictable. You're not reacting, you're preparing, and that makes all the difference. It's not weakness, it's quiet adjustment. Your body isn't failing, it's adapting before you notice. Balance doesn't disappear, it slowly asks for support. And sometimes, that support begins with a single glance. What all of these moments have in common is not difficulty, it's subtlety. They don't interrupt your day. They don't stop you from doing anything. They simply change how you do it. And that change is easy to overlook or misunderstand. It's not that you're losing balance. It's that your body is learning a new way to keep it. A more refined way, a more intentional way, a way that asks for just a little more time, a little more awareness, a little more presence. This isn't something to fix, it's something to notice, to respect, to work with. Because when you stop trying to move like you used to, and start moving in a way that feels right now, everything becomes easier, smoother, safer, more in tune. You don't have to rush. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to ignore these small signals. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs of communication. Your body speaking in a quieter voice. Asking for partnership instead of pressure. So give yourself that extra second. Pause before the first step. Let your foot settle. Turn in a way that feels natural. Touch something if it feels right. Slow down when space narrows. Look before stepping down. Not as rules, not as corrections, but as responses. Gentle ones. That align with how your body is choosing to move. Because balance doesn't disappear. It becomes more refined, more sensitive, more aware. And when you listen to it, it supports you in return. Have you ever noticed yourself moving a little more carefully, without realizing when it started? If this felt familiar, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Your experience might help someone else recognize their own. Thank you for spending this time here. Wishing you steady steps, taken at your own pace, and a body that feels safe wherever you stand.